We are on episode 2 of our Sex and the City deep dive. The real catchphrase of this episode is just me.
Yeah. How realistic is that? Like a single professional woman can buy a property on their own?
Hello and welcome to Help Me I'm Poor, the money podcast that's more Bitsy von Muffling than Bitcoin. I'm Claire.
And I'm Ellie. And each week we discuss how money shows up in some of our favourite pop culture, from the classic to the nostalgic to the contemporary.
Just a little reminder that we are on episode 2 of our Sex and the City deep dive. So if you didn't catch last week, we were talking about season 1. This week, we're talking about season 2. Last week, we kind of talked about all of the different characters and where they were in their journey and all of that stuff, setting the scene. And then I think from this point onwards, in terms of like money and finance storylines, there's kind of like a money main character for each series. And if there is, then series 2 is definitely Miranda. She has so much going on in this series, from like stuff that she does on her own to then her relationships, and money plays like a really big role for her.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get into this week because I have a lot of opinions.
Me too. I think it's so interesting because, again, I don't know whether this was intentional from the writers when they were going through it, but it became really clear to us as we looked through that there really is a character for each season where money kind of is the key thing that's going on for them. I mean, let's get straight into it. I think one of the first things that we see happen in series 2 with Miranda is when she purchases her first apartment. And she is the first of the characters to buy an apartment during the whole lifetime of Sex and the City. And this is such an interesting kind of scene or kind of interaction that we see happen, because effectively she is buying this on her own. We know that she's a corporate lawyer. We know that she's earning lots of money. So there's no doubt, I guess, in our minds that she can do this on her own. It's not a huge apartment. It's a 1-bedroom apartment. It's in a nice area, but still not cheap, but affordable on a good salary. And the mortgage advisor or the kind of mortgage assistant assumes that she must be buying it with help.
Yeah, 100%. And in actual fact, at every stage of the process, so she's being shown around by the realtor to begin with, and she like keeps insisting. She's like, this is quite big. Are you sure it's just you? And she's like, yeah. just me. Like the real catchphrase of this episode is just me.
Yeah.
She's like, and have you got a boyfriend who's going to move in? She's like,
no, just
me. And then she's signing the papers in the solicitor's office or the mortgage office or whatever it is. And she has to check like the single woman box so many times. And the guy, whoever he is, outright says to her, and I assume your father is paying the down payment. And she's like, no, it just me. And so I think that is really interesting.
Yeah.
But throughout this episode is called 4 Women in a Funeral, I think. And it opens with a funeral of a fashion designer friend of theirs who's died of a heroin overdose, as you do. And there's like a sort of like a mortality theme underneath it as well. And Miranda is kind of taking this huge step on her own.
Yeah.
And I think the kind of financial responsibility of home ownership on her own puts her into a bit of a panic. So she actually has a panic attack. She has to go to the hospital to be told that.
Well, it's also because she finds out, doesn't she, that the person that owned the flat before her died in the flat and was left there, I think, for about a week without being found, because she was this old woman who was a spinster with her cat, and that the cat ate her, which kind of comes full circle later on, because Miranda then has the cat that she then is overfeeding to make sure that she doesn't end up doing that.
So funny. Because her cat is called Fatty as well, I think.
Yeah.
So the fact that she's overfeeding him has got like also more hidden undertones. But
but it's like really kind of pulling on this existential fear that she has underneath this huge achievement that she's buying this apartment, this fear that she's going to be on her own. And, you know, I don't imagine that in reality that the process would have constantly been like single. Like they're obviously really trying to emphasize that in the episode. But it is a really interesting, I guess, like contrast of this like exciting milestone for her, coupled with this like fear and, like you say, like the panic attack and the like worry that she's going to just be on her own, when actually, you know, this is a really cool thing that she's doing.
Absolutely. And I think that this like trope of women being afraid that they're going to die alone in their apartment and
With a cat.
and be eaten by something is so funny, because Bridget Jones is scared of being eaten by Alsatians.
Yeah, it's so true.
And I felt really like anxious when we bought our house, and I was buying with someone else who was also like taking responsibility for paying the mortgage and all of that stuff. It's a huge step, and it does come with this like mixture, I think, of sort of pride and anxiety, and I can just imagine that would be massively amplified if you were doing it alone. You know, I don't have that many friends who've bought alone, but I do have a friend who has just bought a house solo after they have separated from their partner, and it's a lot to go through on your own. Like, it's really intrusive, kind of the amount of information that you have to give and the amount of commitment that you have to make, and the waiting and the
it's a tough process as it is. Like you say, like when you're doing it with somebody, so never mind trying to do it on your own, and then the pressure, because I think we, you know, there's so much kind of financial pressure that having a mortgage hanging over you has. And again, it's like this weird British thing that we like celebrate home ownership obsessively, but actually we then get to that point the other side, and I've talked about this before, but like you then a few weeks later get this mortgage statement and you're like, oh shit.
Like I'm actually like in
I don't own my house. I am borrowing my house off the bank mostly.
Which I'm now in more debt than I've ever been.
Literally, it's insane, isn't it? It's like we don't ever think about it in those terms until afterwards. I do regularly kind of like have to remind myself and my husband about the fact that, you know, because he's sometimes like, you know, like, what if like we just don't want to do this and work this hard anymore? And it's like, well, I guess we have to sell the house. Like, that's the reality. Like, yes, you can sell it, and hopefully at that point you're then released from the bank, but it's still a lot of pressure whilst you have it. And, you know, I can see why she was stressed by this. But just to kind of go into like the kind of gender element of it as well, I find it so fascinating how like this episode really focused so much on like, I guess almost like the stigma of being like a successful single woman doing this. Like, can you ever imagine them making that episode if it were a man that was buying his apartment on his own?
I fear not, like a total non-issue. What would the storyline be? Like
single man, cool,
nothing.
Bachelor, yeah.
Exactly, like a Bachelor pad. And I think there is this like such a gendered thing of the difference between like a Bachelor and a Spinster.
Yeah.
Like one of them has the connotations that the other one doesn't, but it's also even reflected in like her female friends' opinions on it. So Carrie, as usual, doesn't really have much of an opinion. Samantha is like, oh, it's fabulous, darling. Like, she is about everything. Oh, you know, it's so fabulous that you've bought your own apartment. But Charlotte is like, well, this is why I rent. So again, this is like a bit of an expression of Charlotte's privilege, because all the signs are there that she could just afford to buy somewhere potentially with like some family help. But she's like, this is why I rent, because like if they own and you rent, then that's fine and that's normal, and you can like move into their house apartment presumably. But if you own and they rent, then they don't like it, and it shifts the power dynamic, and it's emasculating for them. And I think this comes to play in like the second big thing that we're going to talk about with Miranda in season 2, because it's really important and it is explicitly addressed. But Charlotte's attitude towards this is just
like
so funny.
So old school. Like, she's like the epitome of like a trad wife. Like she's like not shy about it. And I kind of like love that for her. Like, she's really like blatant about the fact that is her view on it. She does not want to be the like strong, independent woman. I do think it's really fascinating just to like think and look at this in like 2025 again, because I do feel like we've kind of been around the houses a few times in the like 30 years since this came out, in terms of like where society stands on I guess doing things on your own, and like whether it's even like doable, because you know, of course, we know that Miranda earns a lot of money. And so she is in a situation where that is possible. But I also think there's this question of like, even if you want to do it nowadays, how realistic is that somebody like a single professional woman can buy a property on their own? Like, I think it's getting really, really difficult.
I think it's getting really tough. I have a friend who did buy a flat on her own a good few years ago now, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. But I remember her saying that she had like sort of made it her mission. I'm going to say this is in like 2010. But she'd sort of made it her mission as soon as she graduated to save as aggressively as she could to buy her own flat, because that's how you like get your life started. And I did not take any of this advice, but I always remember that conversation because there was this determination to like get your feet under the table of their housing ladder. And I think she had just like completed on her flat, and she must have been in her like mid-20s, like completing on a flat in Surrey. So I think you have to maybe go back 15 years. B, you'd have to be like really determined and kind of single-minded about it. And C, you have to be working in a
high-paying
professional job. Because there's twofold, isn't there? There's the saving of the deposit, unless your parents are in a position to gift you that. And that is something that's increasingly normal, the kind of bank of mum and dad. But also the fact that the mortgage that you're going to be offered is going to be like a multiplication factor of your salary. So if you're earning a low salary, you're still not going to be able to get a mortgage even with a reasonably hefty deposit.
I think it's really difficult. Like, and I know we've talked about this before, but like the cost of being single is like a real thing. The other thing that kind of came to mind when I was looking at the prep and like rewatching for this episode is this idea again of like perception of home ownership and like how it's considered. So when you're dating, if somebody like owns their home or whether they rent, whether they house share, because I was watching the latest season of Love is Blind at the weekend, as I do. And
we've got if you love Love is Blind, we've got an episode in season 1 that you should go back and listen to.
We absolutely do. And season 2 is 10 out of 10 so far in terms of all of these themes again. And it came up where there was somebody who was in the pods and they were dating, and she said, you know, like, I don't want to date someone that like lives at home. Like, I want somebody who owns their own house. And she went into one of these pods and had a conversation with the guy, and he was like, oh no, I live at home with my mum. And you could just see her face was like just disgusted. And I was like, that's quite a like strong reaction to have. You know, we are in like quite tough economic times. Like, this guy is in his 20s. Like, it's not that unreasonable to still be living at home nowadays. But she was so clear that that was an absolute no-go for her, that she wanted somebody who was already a homeowner, and that was like her minimum.
That was like
and I think
deal breaker.
And I think that maybe, you know, people are kind of maybe going back to being a bit clearer about like the financial situation that they want their partner to be in.
Yeah, I do think that the home ownership is like part of a broader thing with Miranda, where she feels like, and you know, Charlotte says explicitly that this is the case, and Miranda kind of sees it evidence that some men are intimidated by the fact that she is a high earner, she owns her own apartment, and she's like, by all intents and purposes, completely like financially independent of them.
Yeah.
To the point where when she goes speed dating, she pretends to be an air hostess.
Yeah, because no men were interested when she said that she was a lawyer. And literally she got a better reaction by saying that she was an air hostess.
It's absolutely fascinating.
Okay, just a quick pause for a word from our sponsor, eToro.
You know how in Sex and the City, the girls could talk about literally anything? Sex, breakups, babies, body hair, nothing was off limits.
They even talked about money sometimes, but weirdly not really investing or growing their wealth. Like, why were they talking about their date's net worth, but never their own?
That's why we love eToro's Loud Investing initiative. It's about making investing a normal part of the group chat.
Not just a thing that men talk about while they're at golf.
We want money conversations to feel like brunch with your best mate. Honest, fun, maybe a little bit chaotic, but super helpful and real.
Exactly. And with eToro, investing feels social. You can learn from others and build confidence without pretending that you've read The Economist from cover to cover.
So if you've ever felt like the odd one out in money conversations, eToro is your invite to the table.
No shame, no jargon, just women investing loudly.
This episode of Help Me I'm Poor is sponsored by eToro. Search Loud Investing with eToro to find out more and join the movement.
And just so we're clear, everything we talk about here is for information and education only. It's not financial advice, personal recommendations, or an offer of any kind. Always do your own research.
eToro is a multi-asset investment platform. The value of your investments may go up or down, and your capital is at risk.
I think this is the perfect time to bring in our favourite character.
Yeah, so season 2 is when Miranda meets her kind of eventual husband, Steve. Now, a lot of people have got a lot of opinions on this, and I think we're going to have to throw out a poll to see what people think, but I am a huge Steve Brady apologist. Like, I don't think that he's perfect, and definitely his behavior in this season and when they break up for the first time is not brilliant, but it is very human. And it does do something to kind of almost address these things that are raised earlier on in the season when Charlotte's talking about kind of men being threatened by your financial power. Can I have like permission to just go on a bit of a rant?
Go for it.
I'm going to go off. So I think that the internet and Just Like That have completely rewritten Miranda and Steve's relationship to the point where it doesn't even remotely resemble what actually happened on screen. And in actual fact, even people that I normally agree with. So I'm a big fan of The Financial Diet, but I listened to their podcast episode on Miranda. They did a 4-part podcast kind of deep dive, and they structured it kind of an episode for each of the characters and kind of their biggest like money mistake and all of that. And they said that her biggest money mistake was having anything to do with Steve.
I just think that's so harsh.
There's a number of different things. So I think it's been really rewritten to, and this isn't just by stuff like that. This is just like the discourse on the internet and what people think. So here's a few opinions that I've seen about Steve, that he like forced Miranda to change, that he potentially baby trapped her, which is such nonsense. Like, I think some of this stuff's coming from people who haven't even seen the TV show, that he like dragged her down and that like she never loved him, he was shit in bed, all of this stuff. And like when you actually watch it, like the chemistry between them is so good. Like she doesn't have that chemistry with anyone else throughout the whole show. It is like a really unequal partnership, but I also just don't think that you can only have a successful relationship with someone who's exactly like you.
No.
And I think one of the big themes of Sex and the City is that sometimes you just like fall for the person who you don't think you're going to fall for. And that does happen to Charlotte later on. But I think people are really ignoring the fact that Miranda chooses Steve so many times over the course of the series. He doesn't force her into anything. The people who are saying that he pressures her into keeping the baby, he doesn't know about baby Brady until she has already decided not to have the abortion. She goes to the clinic, she decides she doesn't want to go through with it, and then she tells him. She is the one, he's moved on. He's with Debbie and her acrylic nails. And she's the one who like breaks up with her ridiculously hot doctor boyfriend because she still loves him so much. She's the one who proposes to him. I just think that people are really rewriting this. And I just think that everybody who is making up their own storylines needs to just fuck off, basically. And that's not to say that Steve's perfect. I do really like them as a couple. But I do think that there's a reason why they are together. There's a reason why they keep getting drawn back to each other. And I think that he offers her something that she can't get from like potentially like from herself. He offers her like the like love and care and like, you know, he he like looks after her when she's had her laser surgery and all of that stuff. And let's face it, if she married another corporate lawyer, who's giving up their job if they decide to have a baby? Don't you think it's him?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I think let's just go back to where they first meet for a second. So they meet in the bar, and he is a bartender and she's this kind of lawyer. And so we're already from like the get-go kind of positioning them as like she's like the high achiever, she's the like the winner, I guess, and he's kind of like the loser from the start. And that is effectively, I guess, the narrative that then continues to be pushed. And ultimately, I guess, what like the internet has continued to take is that really she's kind of like settled, or she's like dropped her standards for him. But we do also see that like throughout season 2 particularly, they have quite a lot of issues about this like dynamic and the fact that there is this mismatch. And I do think that it's quite important to kind of examine some of that.
For sure.
We can like take that big picture view and look at like, you know, overall, like, are they a good couple? Do we like them together? But they don't get off to like a smooth start.
No, it's not great in season 2, but you're right. Like some of the negotiating that you have to do when you are like finding a way to be together does not go smoothly, and it's mostly about money. Like he's a bartender, she's a lawyer. Like there is that whole like she was a lawyer, he was a sandwich thing. But it is a little bit like that.
Yeah,
and there are numerous things like they can't go out to dinner anywhere nice.
Yeah, they have to go to like places he can afford.
Yeah,
which I do also think is like a really interesting like thing to think about. Like generally with dating, like. Because ultimately, like that comes back to the point really, isn't it? Because that he wants to be able to pay. Like he doesn't want to be emasculated by her paying, because if she pays, they can go anywhere for dinner,
exactly.
basically. But it's like he wants to still be the like person that's paying and like, I guess, take that kind of more traditional role. But that then limits them to going to the places that he can go to.
I don't know. Let's talk about the extent to which that's Steve's fault. Like he's grown up, you know, he's in his 30s in the 90s. Has he not grown up at a time when it's kind of drummed into, and I think it is still in some ways like drummed into young men that you should be the one to take care of your partner.
Yeah.
Don't you think that will have been socialized into him, this idea that you can't let your girlfriend pay?
Yeah, and also like just look at the other characters. Like we said in episode 1, like do you think that they were like going out and offering to pay on the dates most of the time? Like I don't think so. So I imagine that is just like the societal pressure, is that he feels like he should pay even if she's offering to pay. And also I guess as it's a bigger picture, and this comes up later with the whole suit incident, but like, you know, does he just feel like he would be uncomfortable in those situations? Like if you don't have the money and you also then don't have the like lifestyle and the clothes to go to high-end restaurants, like it's not just the paying for the bill, it's all of it. And I guess there's just a sense maybe of like real discomfort with that world. And then maybe actually it is just up to Miranda, like whether, you know, you are comfortable with what dating Steve means in terms of like how you live that lifestyle out.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's important to note that it isn't just in the world of her work, like her social life. They kind of socialize quite upper class as well. I mean, they go to that $100,000 wedding in the episode. I think it's called The Tail and the Hair. And I mean, it looks so shit for 100 grand. Like, honestly, if I'd spent 100 grand on that wedding, I would be
refunds
very, very pissed off. But it's her whole life, I think, that he's worried that he doesn't fit into. And it really comes to a head in the episode with the suit. So what happens is that Miranda has invited Steve to go with her to this corporate function. He doesn't have anything to wear. He's just got this like gold corduroy suit, which she sees like she goes back to his apartment for the first time, and it's a bit of a dive. But he's like, it's cheap, it's close to the bar. And that's like the level that he's at, I suppose. Those are his priorities. And then they go suit shopping. And it's so awkward. Like, he looks great,
Yeah.
but he can't afford to pay for it. He's like doing the like
different cards.
Yeah, the awful thing of like fumbling around being like, oh, can you put like 800 on my credit card? I'll write you a check for 1,000. And Miranda's obviously stood there with enough money to pay for it. She's willing to pay for it. I think a really important thing is she is not the sort of person who would hold that over his head. It's something that she's happy to contribute to the relationship.
Yeah.
And then he does the like really shitty thing of he's bought the suit using this like cobbled together system of cards and cash and checks. And then he stands her up. He shows up when she's completely ready to go. He's returned the suit. In a t-shirt. He's returned the suit. He said he can't afford it and he breaks up with her. And I nearly cried watching her reaction because she's so gutted. I think the way that Charlotte frames it is like, oh, and she says, you don't want to go out with him, he's working class. But it doesn't matter to her, but it matters to him. And I think we do see that quite a lot. We talked about it in Bridesmaids where Annie insists on flying coach because she won't let anyone pay for her upgrade to first class. And it is that thing of Steve is really like cutting off his nose to spite his face.
But I mean, I saw a few kind of forums discussing this, like, but what do you think he should have done? Or like, what should they have done in that scenario? Should she have just let him wear his suit, his cord suit?
Well, that is kind of what the episode indicates, but I just can't see that working out well. Like, I just think that potentially that would have led to like another row or Steve feeling so uncomfortable. And I do wonder, timing is really important in relationships. I do wonder if this was just not the time for them to get together. And, they split up and then they get together and then they split up and then Miranda gets pregnant and then finally they get together. And, I can see why lots of people don't see that as like the ideal path to the person that you're meant to be with. And I can see why some people kind of do think that they're like incompatible. But I think also there's kind of something to be said for someone that you keep being drawn to and an ability to work out your differences over time.
Yeah, and I think the idea like that the incompatibility is purely based on like their financial means and like their circumstances, I don't really buy into. Like, I think it means that you maybe have to work a lot harder at communicating and like figuring out where your boundaries are and like who's going to do what and what you're comfortable with. But I don't think that just because you're from very different financial backgrounds, that you're fundamentally incompatible. Like, I mean, what kind of message is that sending to people? Like, just date, like
only date in your own
payback, like pay bands. Like, it's, I don't know. I just don't think it's just a bit sad if that's the case.
Yeah, I think so. And like, he does really sort of like, in inverted commas, make something of himself over the years. Like, he then has his own bar, he's a business owner, and you can see that like that does really shift the dynamic, I think. And she's still like gonna be out earning him by like squillions, but it does change something in the dynamic. And I think he becomes more comfortable with the idea that they can each bring different things to the relationship, which I think is really important. But also, to your point, like about only dating inside your pay bracket, would we be batting a single eyelash, let alone a lid, if the genders were reversed?
No.
How many times is Carrie bought a dress by someone, by a man that she's dating? And
like you said, taken out for dinner all the time.
And Petrovsky buys her that like fabulous dress to go to the opera, but then she faint and they just go to McDonald's instead. So like, but that's a non-issue.
Yeah, it's like a really like stark contrast how they depict the two scenarios. And I do think that like some of these narratives, like even now in like 2025, are kind of still drilling into that like we've gone so far into like women should be independent financially that it's like, well, don't even look at somebody that is earning less than you. Like, I don't know.
And
I
the
just
whole
don't.
like no scrubs kind of narrative.
Yeah,
There's like a big thing on Mum's Net of like not having what they call a cock lodger. So someone like a man who kind of comes and sponges off you and comes and sort of lives in your house rent free, which totally like don't let anyone take advantage of you. This obviously is not what Steve's trying to do because he's battling to constantly pay his way. He's really trying. But if we're talking about like the attitudes of millennial men, so like men in their early to mid 30s now, I can confidently tell you that my husband would 100% be fine with just being arm candy. And with me just paying for everything. And like we've had over the course of our relationship, this is what I was saying about like sometimes it evens out over time. It's like we've had periods where he was earning loads more. We've had periods where I was earning loads more. It does even out over time.
I think that's the thing as well. It's like, in Miranda and Steve's case, probably doesn't. But in a lot of situations, like where you are when you meet is not how it's going to stay. It's going to like change and fluctuate. And like one of you might decide that you want to completely career change and like vice versa. And I think you have to like have that in mind. Like you can go into a relationship and be like, I only want to date someone who's earning like X amount of money. But like what happens if they then like have a breakdown next year and they have to like quit and go and retrain and earn like a fifth of the money? Like are you still going to love them, or are you not going to love them anymore because of the fact that you earn enough money?
Or if they become unwell, or if they have an accident, like it isn't, that alone isn't something that you can like base your relationship or how willing you are to make things work with someone.
No, and I think you made a really good point about Steve, which I think is important. And there's this like, I guess, whether there's like the willingness or like the desire to like, you know, earn more or like change your circumstances. Like if he was just like, you know, I only want to ever be a bartender, I'm just gonna like earn $10 forever an hour, like that's me done, I'm not gonna try. That's a different story. But actually, like we do see that like he does want to kind of become like a business owner. He does want to do more than that. And I think that is a very different situation. Because I think you've kind of got to look a bit more big picture. And okay, that might be where they are right now, but you know, that isn't necessarily where they're going to be like in 2, 4, 5 years time. But I do also understand that for a lot of people, like there's so much financial pressure, and like the idea of like having to take on the financial like burden, I guess, in a relationship, that's also quite daunting. So you do sometimes want someone that can help with that.
It is so true. And I think honestly, I would have such a different take on this if the storyline were that Miranda was looking for this high-powered equal in terms of earning potential, and she allowed herself to settle for something that she didn't want. Then I would have like such a different take, and maybe I would be more in agreement with the people who are like, oh, Steve ruined Miranda's life. But the fact of the matter is that it's never said that that's what she's looking for.
No.
And actually I think that a lot of what Miranda is looking for, she does like eventually find in Steve. And it's not like she sort of, I don't know, it's not like she's kind of sort of hitched her wagon to his at 22 and been tied down. Like she's a woman of the world. She's dated a lot of men. Like, can we please trust her to make up her own mind about what she wants?
Yeah, I think so. And I think
that's my take.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, like again, it's that whole kind of like hindsight and rewriting it. Like we like to like look at the characters and be like, no, you got that wrong. Like, but actually, like these are, you know, grown women. They make silly mistakes, but actually sometimes maybe they do know what they're doing.
You know, you can reach a financial compromise in your relationship. You don't always have to have complete financial equality and equity. And like we said a million times during this conversation, it just would not be an issue the other way around. And the show does like explicitly address that. It's not oblivious to it. But I also do think that there is still a bit of that creeping into a lot of people's opinions on this particular relationship and the dynamic. Having said that, I do think that he was an utter shit to stand her up and make her go to her event alone.
Yeah.
For the sake of a suit.
Yeah, I know. He could have returned the suit afterwards.
Yeah, he so could have done that. Just kept the labels in.
I know, took the label in and returned it afterwards.
He's not done that.
I know, bless him. We 100% need to throw this out. So we will stick a poll on the episode to see what you all think about Miranda and Steve, whether you are Camp Steve, Steve apologist, or whether you're absolutely not. We have to wrap up now.
We do. And we're going to next season, talk about season 3, where we're talking about like literally the opposite relationship dynamic.
Yeah.
And Charlotte's big money season, which is coming up, which is going to be juicy as well, I think.
So much. Like, I just think Charlotte is fascinating, so I'm very excited to dive into that. But thank you so much for listening again. We hope you are really enjoying our Sex and the City season. Don't forget to hit follow or subscribe if you want to get the next episode as soon as it's out.
And you can also subscribe to our Substack, where we will be adding extra thoughts, probably some links to other people's takes, articles, etc. You can just find us at Help Me Unpoor. Or if you come onto our Instagram at Help Me Unpoorcast, then you can find a link to subscribe there.
And if you are loving it, please do leave us a review. It means the absolute world, and it helps us to grow and to reach more people, because we are a small independent podcast and we want to keep creating more episodes for you.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.